From the moment Uju opened her mouth in class, the mocking started. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Her accent, thick with the musical tones of her village in Anambra, danced across her English like a foreign melody in an orchestra of polished Lagos voices. Her classmates giggled, and the teacher sighed in exasperation. At 16, she had just transferred from her village school to a top-tier secondary school in Lagos, thanks to a state scholarship. But instead of making friends, she became the class joke. Each question she answered sparked laughter. Even when she got it right, the boys at the back would mimic her, dragging out her vowels and twisting her consonants. It stung. But she never let the tears fall in public. At night, she wrote in her journal and whispered to herself that one day, they would hear her speak, and they would listen. She would stay late in the library, practicing how to pronounce certain words. But the more she tried to erase her roots, the less she recognized herself. Her accent was her identity, shaped by village evenings around fires, church hymns, and market banter. The more she tried to change it, the more she lost pieces of herself. Her teachers saw her struggle, but offered little help. One day, she asked her literature teacher how to better pronounce a difficult word, and the woman only said, "Try not to sound so local next time." Those words sat on her chest like wet cloth. She cried into her pillow for weeks. Uju began to speak less. She participated only when she had to, shrinking into her seat during debates or oral presentations. Her grades remained excellent, but her confidence withered. At home, her mother urged her not to lose her voice. "Your tongue is not a mistake," Mama said, pouring palm oil into a sizzling pan. "It is the sound of your people." But the ridicule in school continued. When Uju tried to adjust her accent, her voice sounded unnatural. She hated herself for trying. After graduation, she applied to study English at university. Her dream was to become a teacher. But deep down, she also wanted to be heard. To matter. To use her voice, not hide it. University gave her some reprieve, but it wasn't complete freedom. In her first semester, a professor corrected her reading of a Shakespearean sonnet, not for accuracy, but for her tone. "Make it sound less tribal," he said. That night, Uju cried for hours. Then she made a decision. She would not let the world shrink her anymore. Her accent would no longer be something to erase. It would be her weapon. She joined a student group focused on poetry and spoken word. At first, she only listened, but eventually she read one of her poems aloud at a meeting. The room was quiet at first, then someone clapped. And then another. It was the first time she felt seen for how she sounded, not despite it. At university, things got slightly better. There were more people from different parts of the country. Pause, subscribe, like and comment what you think would happen next. But the hierarchy of accents persisted. Those with American twangs were admired. Those with British inflections were respected. But Uju's voice still earned smirks. Still, she started to experiment with spoken word poetry. In her small hostel room, she recorded audio of her poems, pouring her heart into them, then deleting each one. It wasn't until a friend borrowed her phone, stumbled on a recording, and begged her to post it online that she even considered it. She uploaded her first video anonymously. No face, just a still image and her voice reciting her poem, The Sound of Soil. It was raw, powerful, emotional. Within days, it was shared across student groups. People praised the mystery poet's voice. They didn't know it was the same voice they once laughed at. She began uploading more consistently, writing late into the night. Her words resonated with people. The rural girl struggling in the city, the boy mocked for mixing Yoruba and English, the girl who stopped speaking her mother tongue to fit in. Slowly, her following grew. Encouraged by her online success, she started hosting small open mic nights on campus. Soon, they were drawing crowds. Her voice, once mocked, was now a symbol of strength. More students began to speak in their native tones. Encouraged by the response, Uju posted another and then another. Her channel slowly gained followers. Still, she kept her identity hidden. But the pressure to reveal herself grew. One day, she finally filmed a full video with her face. Her followers were shocked. "Wait. I know her," someone commented. "Isn't that the girl with the funny accent?" The old ridicule returned, but something else came too. A wave of support. People from across Africa, from villages and cities alike, messaged her to say they felt seen. That her voice reminded them of home. That they no longer felt ashamed of their own ways of speaking. Uju cried that night. Not from pain, but from release. She stopped hiding. She began telling her full story, how she was mocked, how she doubted herself, and how she found strength in her voice. She started a series where she read African proverbs and folk tales in her natural accent. Viewers loved it. Parents said their children began speaking their local dialects with pride again. Her words were healing generations. Her subscriber count tripled. She reached 100,000 followers in 4 months. A diaspora audience began to take interest. Africans living abroad felt her voice gave them a sense of home. The turning point came with her video, "Don't Kill Your Mother Tongue," where she mixed English with Igbo, Pidgin, and poetry. It went viral, over 1 million views in a week. She was invited to speak at conferences, schools, and cultural centers. Brand deals followed. She partnered with educational platforms, storytelling apps, and African diaspora networks. But she never changed her accent. Not for interviews. Not for sponsors. Instead, she launched a series called Accent Diaries, where she interviewed people from different tribes, backgrounds, and even other African countries. Each episode celebrated linguistic diversity and identity. Her platform grew massively. She began earning millions. She started monetizing her content through YouTube, sponsorships, voiceover gigs, and workshops. Her monthly income crossed into millions of naira, then hundreds of thousands of dollars. But she stayed grounded. She invested part of her income in language preservation, hiring experts to create a free audio library of African folk tales, poems, and proverbs. Children across the continent used her platform to learn. Uju used her new wealth to fund language learning centers and digital resources in rural schools. She employed linguists, teachers, and creatives to preserve African languages and accents. Her foundation offered scholarships and content creation grants for students from underrepresented areas. Meanwhile, she continued producing content. From village markets to urban classrooms, her voice echoed everywhere. Her confidence had grown into a force that couldn't be silenced. She began writing books for children with bilingual pages, one side in English, the other in local dialects. The books sold out. Publishers, who once turned her away, now offered multimillion naira contracts. But she remained fiercely independent. She launched a podcast that climbed the charts across Africa and the diaspora. Each episode tackled identity, storytelling, and the journey to self-acceptance. Guest appearances by other African influencers, professors, and celebrities made it even more powerful. Uju returned to her old secondary school, now as a celebrated alumna. The head teacher, who once sighed at her accent, introduced her with pride. Some of her old classmates, now parents themselves, came to see her speak. She stood on the same stage, where she had once been mocked, during a debate, and delivered a speech titled "Speak as You Are." Her voice rang out confidently, thick and beautiful as ever. The laughter was gone, replaced by applause. Afterwards, a teacher pulled her aside. "I wish I had defended you more," he said. She smiled. "You helped me become stronger. I'm grateful." She also visited her village, bringing a media van and mobile studio to help young people create content in their own languages. Elders wept as they saw their stories being filmed and shared with the world. She filmed a documentary series in local communities across Nigeria, highlighting the oral traditions of elders. The series was picked up by Netflix and nominated for an international award. Uju began to mentor young girls across Africa, especially those silenced because of how they spoke. She taught them to write, to perform, to embrace their voices. Her workshops filled stadiums. Her TED Talk, "Your Voice is Not Broken," trended globally. She started a publishing company focused on indigenous voices and stories told in native accents. She refused to edit out local speech patterns, believing they carried emotional weight textbooks couldn't teach. Her mansion in Lagos doubled as a recording studio and content creator hub. Dozens of young creators, especially from rural areas, lived and worked there. She called it Voice Village. Through her network, thousands of jobs were created. Local dialect YouTube channels exploded in popularity. Formerly unemployed youth were now building careers teaching languages, making documentaries, and performing oral literature. She launched a music label that celebrated local dialects in modern Afrobeat. Songs in Igbo, Tiv, Efik, and more reached international charts. Language was finally becoming cool again. Years passed, and Uju remained at the forefront of African digital storytelling. She was featured in Forbes, BBC, and Al Jazeera. But her proudest moments came not from media features, but from the thousands of DMs, letters, and voice notes from young people who said, "You made me believe in myself." She didn't just become a millionaire, she became a movement. Every Sunday, she hosted a live stream titled, Soundtrack of the Struggle, where she read poems from her followers, spotlighted underrepresented creators, and even sang old lullabies her mother taught her. The streams had millions of live viewers. Universities started using her videos in curricula. Linguistic studies were written about her work. She received honorary degrees for her role in preserving Africa's spoken heritage. But she remained humble, always pointing to her roots. She was invited to the United Nations to speak on cultural identity. Her speech received a standing ovation. She cried backstage. This was the girl who was once told to keep quiet. On her 30th birthday, Uju was honored at the National Arts Theatre. The president himself presented her with a medal for cultural impact. She stood on stage, looking out at a crowd of artists, students, and young creators chanting her name. She didn't change her voice for success, she changed the world's ears. As the applause thundered, Uju leaned into the microphone and said the words that had carried her all these years. "This voice you once laughed at, made me a millionaire. But more importantly, it made me free." As she walked off stage, a little girl from the audience ran to hug her. "I want to sound like you when I grow up," the girl said. Uju bent down, smiled, and whispered, "Then don't ever try to sound like anyone else." And so, from laughter to legend, Uju's voice rose beyond the mocking halls of her youth and echoed into the hearts of millions, forever loud, forever proud, forever hers.